Welcome back, everyone. If you're new here, we explore areas of leathercraft, and today we are looking at different cuts of a leather hide. We're going to dive into understanding what they are and the different naming conventions that are used. We're also going to look at, how to choose the proper leather for a project, and even better, we're going to look at how to save you some money, because depending on what you're looking to buy, you can save a lot, buying different areas of the hide, for your projects. So let's dive right in and take a look. We've got this visual laid out over here, and we're going to look at the common cut names, and we're also going to look at the leather quality by the hide area. And we'll look at the common cut names. We essentially start with the whole hide. That's referred to as a whole. If we cut that right down the middle, it's called a side. If we look at the front corner, it's called a shoulder. And if we look at both of those shoulders together, it's called a double shoulder. And if we look at the back middle, we refer to that as the bend. And if we combine both of those from the hide, we've got the double bend. On the very bottom of the hide, we've got the butt. And we combine both of those, we've got the double butt. And then on the sides, we've got the belly. And when we combine those, you guessed it, double belly. So those are the common cut names. So when you're buying leather, you typically look, and purchase one of these. So what does that mean? So let's look at the actual hide area and look at the qualities. So when we start towards the end of the hide, the edges, we have what's called fair. Leathers, it's okay. And as we move closer to the middle, we get towards good, better, and best. And so why is that, right? You'd think there's a whole hide, it should be the same. So we've got our friend here today. He wrote in just for this, so I appreciate it a lot. And we'll take a look. So here's an example of a horse, in any animal we can look at similarly, where the areas down on their body toward like their legs and below are generally going to be in the environment interacting with things. They're going to be rubbing up against brush and trees and maybe fences, and they may get scratches and cuts. And it's also usually a thinner part of the animal. And as we move up, it becomes more protected from the elements. The top of the back of the animal and even the back middle of the animal generally doesn't get a lot of things happening to it. And so when we look at our hide area, we see that reflected here as well. The parts that may come into contact with the environment, you get scratches and nicks and cuts, they're generally going to be around here. And then as we get up towards the top, we're going to get our higher quality leather. And also the actual composition of the leather fibers themselves, they can usually get denser and more consistent and a higher quality as we get up here as well. So we kind of get both of those factors involved, the natural composition, plus that there's less chance that animal is, scratch things up here than they have down here. So that's kind of how the hide area relates to quality. So when we look at different animals, it's going to be a little bit different. This is a guide. So if you have, if anyone gets into squirrel leather, you're going to have a little bit of a different than if you're looking at, a cow, or if you're looking at a horse. For example, on horses, there's an area right back up here, kind of on this top side, the top area on either side. And if you're looking at our diagram, it'd kind of be around here. And that produces a really popular leather called shell cordovan. And it's a very dense, very smooth leather. It's great for a lot of things. So it's going to be a little bit different because it's on the sides over here, not totally across the middle, but in general, it still fits with the idea that the higher up here you go, the higher quality leather. So just keep in mind, it will vary by animal, while in general, kind of following this pattern of quality. So when we look at those two things, the hide area and the cut, how does that help us? So for projects, you want to have an idea of what you're making. So for example, if you're going to be making a belt and you're going to, dye it heavily, or paint it and actually cover the leather itself, you'll probably be fine because you can use this part of the belly that is less expensive and the finished piece will still come out great. You're still getting, a good piece of leather. You're going to be covering it up. That's excellent. If you want to make a belt that is going to show the natural grain of that leather as part of the belt, you may want something that's up here. maybe in the good or the better. And then that you'll have a more even grain texture, maybe some nicer coloring, no scratches, things like that. So it really depends on what you're going to make as to what part of the hide you can use for that. You could certainly always use better leather for any project. It also gets more costly. The more we go into the higher qualities, the higher the cost it gets. And that also vary by animal as well. And so in terms of saving money, depending on what you're making, say you're making, a high quality belt, you want to make some simple coasters, maybe even some things from leather, maybe some leather laces that you're going to use to tie up, some firewood or something, where they really don't have to look good. They just have to be pieces. So depending on what that range of projects you may have, it may make sense to buy a whole side, because then you get a little bit of all of those qualities and you could use each of that as needed per project. Typically, if you buy these separate, they're going to be more expensive than if you were to buy, a side or a whole or something like that. So if you're going to make different projects of varying, leather quality needs, it's a great idea to potentially buy a whole side, or buy a side or a whole hide. You could find some, good discounts, good deals. Plus, just by buying the volume of that, you're going to be saving money there. So like any good project, it helps if you plan it out, knowing what you want, and you could find some really good deals on leather that way. And that's the overview. We understand what the different cut names are, essentially where the qualities are on the hide and why they're different. The cost differences, and that they increases as we go to higher qualities, and also the project factor, what it is that you're trying to make, and that different animals' hides are going to be slightly different. So I will leave this guide link to it so you could download this. It's easy to print out and a reference to have on hand. And if you have any questions, let us know. Until next time, wishing you all really well and keep crafting.